The Constitutional Court will give its impeachment verdict on President Yoon on Friday, 11 a.m. It'll be broadcast live. Ahead of the major ruling, security is heightened at and around the Constitutional Court, with barricades installed and public access restricted. Police will place the highest level alert on the day of the ruling. Ahead of new U.S. tariffs on April 2nd, its trade representative has disclosed a report that points to South Korea's certain regulations on imported vehicles and import restrictions related to American beef, among others. It's April 1st, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter.
결연한 구국의 의지로 비상계엄을 선포하였습니다.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Jung-min. The date has been set for the president. The Constitutional Court says its verdict on whether to reinstate or remove him will be delivered on Friday, 11 a.m. This comes more than 3 months since the leader was removed by the National Assembly. Our correspondent Oh Soo-young starts our coverage.
President Yoon will face his fate on Friday as the Constitutional Court's decision on his impeachment is revealed via a live broadcast. The court notified the press on Tuesday that the 8-member bench will deliver its ruling at 11 a.m. on April 4th. The verdict will come 111 days after the National Assembly voted to impeach President Yoon following his declaration of martial law on December 3rd last year. His case has marked the court's longest ever deliberation on a presidential case, compared to Presidents Roh Moo-hyun and Park Geun-hye's, which took at most 2 weeks. The prolonged timeline has sparked speculation about what is happening behind closed doors, with legal analysts divided over what the verdict could be. Removing a president requires at least 6 justices to uphold the National Assembly's impeachment. If 3 or more dissent, President Yoon returns to power. Some believe the justices have been working towards a unanimous decision, with foolproof reasoning to minimize societal backlash. Others suggest the court has been struggling to reach a consensus as justices may be split ideologically. A recent impeachment case involving Korea Communications Commission Chair Lee Jin-suk ended in a 4-4 deadlock, in line with the justices' political orientations. According to legal circles, the bench is expected to reach their final decision either the evening before or on the morning of the ruling day to maintain utmost confidentiality. If the decision is unanimous, the presiding justice typically reads a summary of the reasoning first, followed by their final written judgment. The ruling will inevitably have major political consequences, as an impeachment would trigger an early presidential election within 60 days. If Yoon is removed from office, the opposition Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung is seen as the frontrunner for a snap election, far ahead of conservative candidates. Thus, conservatives and Yoon supporters continue to push for his impeachment to be dismissed or for the case itself to be scrapped. In the meantime, a presidential official told reporters that Yoon's office is calmly awaiting the court's decision.
As the Constitutional Court prepares to deliver a historic ruling, it faces the formidable challenge of issuing a decision that commands legitimacy in a nation deeply divided along political lines. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
As the verdict date is set and tension builds up, the police are tightening measures to prevent any disorder near the court. Choi Soo-hyung has the details.
Following the impeachment ruling for President Yoon, set for Friday, April 4th, the police have sealed off a 100-meter radius around the Constitutional Court. As of 1 p.m. Tuesday, police banned all gatherings and traffic within a 100-meter radius of the Constitutional Court. Police vehicles formed barricades on nearby roads, including in front of the court and at the Taedong Elementary School intersection. Pedestrian paths have been blocked, restricting public access, and vehicle traffic on Bukchonno outside the court has also been banned. For safety reasons, Anguk Station on line number 3 has closed all access except for exits 5 and 6. Seoul Metro has announced the station would be fully closed on Friday, the day of the ruling. Police have tightened security, closely monitoring nearby gatherings to prevent potential clashes. On the day of the ruling, the highest level emergency response from the police, Kapo Emergency, will be issued, allowing full deployment of police forces. Around 20,000 police personnel from across the country will be mobilized, with 14,000 deployed to Seoul. The level of personal protection for Constitutional Court judges will also be strengthened. Currently, the police are providing dedicated protection for all Constitutional Court judges, including protecting their homes. Meanwhile, on Friday, the day of the ruling, nearby palaces and schools will be closed. The Korea Heritage Service announced that Gyeongbokgung, Changdeokgung and Deoksugung palaces will be closed. The Seoul Metropolitan Office of Education stated that at least 13 schools near the court and the presidential residence in Yongsan will also be temporarily closed as a precaution. Choi Hyung, Arirang News.
Rival parties were quick to respond. The ruling party urged the court not to be swayed by the opposition's pressure, while the opposition called for Yoon's removal. Our National Assembly correspondent Shin Ha-young reports.
The rival political parties welcomed the Constitutional Court's announcement on Tuesday of a date for its verdict on the president's political fate. Ruling People Power Party interim leader Kwon Young-se expressed relief that setting the verdict date will help resolve the constitutional instability. He called for a fair decision while expressing hope that the impeachment motion would be dismissed. PPP floor leader Kwon Sung-dong said that it would accept the ruling but emphasized that the court should not be swayed by the opposition's pressure.
We expect a fair ruling based on law and conscience. The Constitutional Court must not give in to the Democratic Party's pressure for a specific outcome.
Main opposition Democratic Party floor leader Park Chan-dae expressed regret that the acting president has not appointed Constitutional Court Justice nominee Ma Eun-hyuk before the verdict, but still welcomed the decision to deliver it this Friday. Park said Yoon's swift removal from office is the best way to end what it describes as insurrection.
We are confident in a unanimous decision. Since this issue arose from a constitutional violation, removal is the best verdict to end this situation.
The DP leadership held a closed-door meeting after the verdict date was announced, where it decided to be on standby at the National Assembly starting Tuesday to respond to any emergencies until the verdict is delivered. With the Constitutional Court setting the date for President Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment trial verdict, concerns are growing that the country will face political turmoil regardless of the outcome. Shin Ha-young, Arirang News.
And now let us take a minute to look back at what happened leading up to the verdict and what the public should be on the lookout for. Our political correspondent Kim Do-yeon gets us up to speed.
On December 3rd, 2024, at around 10:27 p.m., President Yoon declared martial law. Lawmakers, overcoming the initial standoff against the police and military, rushed to the National Assembly and voted to overturn the declaration after 6 hours. 11 days later, with a dozen ruling People Power Party lawmakers changing their minds from the first vote, the second impeachment vote passes the threshold of 200.
가 204표, 부 85표, 기권 3표, 무효 8표로서 가결되었음을 선포합니다.
That kicked off the Constitutional Court case. April 4th marks 111 days since. The first hearing took place January 2025, 11 of them in total. The impeachment motion lists 5 reasons why President Yoon's action was unconstitutional. 1. The act of declaring martial law was not justified. 2. The details of how martial law will be operated. 3. The attempt to blockade the National Assembly, including detaining politicians. 4. The raid of the National Election Commission. And lastly, efforts to detain judges.
On December 3rd, the Republic of Korea was neither in a state of war, armed conflict, nor facing a comparable national emergency. There was no reason for military involvement to maintain public peace and order through the use of armed forces.
Meanwhile, President Yoon argues that declaring martial law is a president's constitutional authority in a national emergency.
언제 위기가 아닌 때가 있었냐고 하는 분도 있을 겁니다. 그렇지만 그동안의 위기가 돌발 현안 수준이었다면 지금은 국가 존립의 위기, 총체적 시스템의 위기라는 점에서 차원이 완전히 다릅니다.
He claimed the Democratic Party of Korea has been abusing its majority to pass impeachment motions of key government officials and has cut budgets way too far. And that there were anti-state forces already active in South Korea threatening the nation's security while saying the election system was mismanaged. While whether the nation was under grave threat could be seen as subjective, there is one objective fact the Constitutional Court justices pay close attention to. Did Yoon order the detainment of politicians?
The exact wording was to go inside the main hall and take out the lawmakers.
Among many witnesses, second-in-command of National Intelligence Service Hong Jang-won took the spotlight when he testified that President Yoon indeed ordered him to detain key politicians and even had a specific list, presenting a note he took while taking the orders. He claimed that he did not go forward with the order.
After hearing the plans to detain them at the Counterintelligence Command's detention facilities and interrogate them, how could I take those orders?
His claims were challenged by other witnesses, including his former boss, NIS Chief Cho Tae-yong. President Yoon also said the order was to keep a close watch on politicians likely to go against the decrees of martial law. There are 8 justices on the bench currently. It takes 6 to uphold the impeachment. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Korea's exports expanded for the second month in a row in March, gaining over 3% from a year ago, backed by shipments of semiconductors. Lee Soo-jin has the details.
South Korea's exports grew for the second consecutive month in March amid mounting concerns over U.S. President Donald Trump's impending tariffs announcement. Data from the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Tuesday shows that the value of exports last month came to $58.2 billion, up 3.1% compared to the previous year. Korea's exports declined in January, ending a 15-month streak of on-year growth, but rebounded in February and showed an upward trend in March. This comes as outbound shipments of semiconductors, the country's top export item, rose nearly 12% on year, driven by strong demand for high-value memory semiconductors such as HBM and DDR5. Chip exports rebounded in March after showing negative growth in February and fell below the $10 billion mark after surpassing it for 9 consecutive months. Shipments of automobiles, another key export item, also increased for the second consecutive month as growth in shipments of hybrid gasoline and diesel vehicles continued from the previous month. And while exports of steel fell, an official from the government said that the drop was not due to the Trump administration's 25% aluminum and steel tariffs imposed last month.
Export volume has remained largely unchanged. Typically, there is a 2 to 3 months lag between signing a steel contract and the actual exporting, meaning the impact of tariffs on steel is yet to fully take effect.
Outbound shipments of aluminum, which were also subject to the 25% tariff, saw a more than 20% increase last month. But with additional duties including reciprocal tariffs and the 25% auto tariffs set to take effect this week, likely to bring greater trade uncertainties, the official said the government will provide export vouchers and expert consultation services for companies. The country's imports rose 2.3%, leading to a second straight month of trade surplus. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
A recent report by the U.S. Office for Foreign Trade Policy is raising concern in Korea as the findings draw attention to what they see as barriers. An Sung-jin has this report.
The Trump administration is putting scrutiny on South Korea's trade barriers. The United States Trade Representative on Monday local time released a 7-page national trade estimate report, which stated that emissions-related regulations on imported vehicles and the pricing of pharmaceutical products remain a barrier to trade. The U.S.'s concerns came from a lack of transparency despite South Korea's Clean Air Conservation Act layout, and added that market entry for U.S. automotive manufacturers into South Korea remains a top priority. Korea's prioritization of local technology over foreign technology in defense procurement has also been labeled a barrier. In the case of the pharmaceutical and medical industry, the report said Korea lacks transparency and opportunity for stakeholders to input into proposed policy changes. It also noted Seoul's import ban on American beef from cattle aged 30 months or older, calling the restriction a transitional measure. Other trade barriers include digital trade barriers such as network usage fees that allegedly feed into a monopoly of internet service providers. The USTR releases an annual report to the President and Congress that documents obstacles for U.S. exporters and solutions, including efforts to overcome these barriers. Though these trade barriers have already been brought up in the past, with Trump's hardline tariff impositions, they seem more pertinent. South Korea's trade ministry pledged to closely analyze the trade barriers in the report and discuss these issues with relevant ministries and stakeholders to draft a response. The government also plans to consult with the U.S. through working-level channels to further explain Seoul's non-tariff measures. Trump's efforts to impose reciprocal tariffs will resume from the beginning of April. He has stated that further details will become clearer between the night of April 1st or 2nd Eastern Time. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Moving on, U.S. President Donald Trump claims there has been contact with North Korea's Kim Jong-un in recent times amid complicated geopolitics. Kim Jong-sil has more.
Could there be a part 2 in the Trump-Kim romance? At the White House on Monday local time, President Trump said his relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has come a long way since their rocky start.
I have a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un. Now, you people hate to hear that, but it's very important. It started off very rough, very nasty. Little rocket man, the whole thing was a nasty deal. And then one day we got a call that they'd like to meet. We met.
Trump confirmed that the U.S. is communicating with the regime and hinted at future action, though he didn't specify what that might look like.
There is communication, yeah. I think it's very important. You know, he's a big nuclear nation, and he's a very smart guy, but I have a very good relationship with him. Yeah, we'll probably do something at some point.
Experts question whether this renewed approach can lead to a breakthrough, especially as North Korea's nuclear capabilities have advanced since their 2019 summit.
President Trump is focusing on key issues where he can achieve tangible foreign policy successes during his short term, and North Korea is likely one of the areas he sees as crucial.
While diplomatic efforts may continue, Dr. Hong points out that North Korea's nuclear advances remain a significant barrier to progressing talks. Analysts suggest the U.S. is adjusting its strategy accordingly.
Trump's second term signals a shift toward arms control with North Korea, moving away from the goal of complete denuclearization. With North Korea's continued development of ICBMs, the focus is now on negotiating to reduce the threat to the U.S.
Experts added that North Korea's growing ties with Russia, China, and Iran could complicate future negotiations. With the stakes now higher, the attention will be on Trump's next move, as his unpredictable approach could lead to unexpected outcomes. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
South Korea's top diplomat will be heading to Belgium to attend the NATO foreign ministers meeting this week, in what will mark the 4th straight year that a Korean official is attending the multilateral gathering. Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol is scheduled to take part in the session on NATO allies and Indo-Pacific partners, where he will likely seek ways to boost security cooperation with Europe. He is also set to attend a trilateral meeting with his Japanese and Chinese counterparts, held on the sidelines. They are expected to address security issues related to North Korea, as well as ways to strengthen economic cooperation amid reciprocal tariff threats from the Trump administration. Elon Musk's SpaceX has launched 4 private astronauts into space on a mission to orbit Earth from pole to pole, something that's never been done before. The Fram2 mission, led by Chun Wang, a Chinese-born Maltese crypto billionaire, lifted off aboard a SpaceX Falcon 9 from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida on Monday local time. The crew will orbit for 3 to 5 days, conducting over 20 experiments on how space affects the human body. The members also plan to take the first X-ray in space and grow mushrooms in microgravity.
Even though it felt chilly this morning, it turned warm during the day today, causing large gaps between the daily highs and lows. Tomorrow morning will start at 5 degrees Celsius in Seoul and will rise up to 16 degrees during the day. Please dress in layers to avoid catching a cold. As the temperatures get warmer, dusty air has also returned. Fine dust is building up due to the influx of dust from overseas overnight. Ultrafine dust will cover the skies in the Seoul metropolitan area in Chungcheongnam-do province tomorrow. Tomorrow, Chuncheon will start off at 1 degree and Gwangju at 5 degrees. Daily highs will move up to 18 degrees in Daejeon, Gwangju, and Daegu, 16 degrees in Jeju. Starting with the Seoul metropolitan area tomorrow afternoon, spring rain is forecast across the country. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
And that is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.